Will you rest in his peace? We have so much brokenness in our world today that we need peace. We have broken homes and broken humans, broken men and broken women, broken girls, broken boys. We have broken members and broken marriages. We have broken hearts and broken spirits. So much brokenness, broken limbs and broken lives, broken families and broken fellowships. And they need the kind of peace that can put them back together again. And I guess you're wondering, what does peace have to do with brokenness? What does peace have to do with putting broken pieces back together again? Because in the Old Testament, the Hebrew word for peace is shalom. Shalom, which means peace and wholeness. Jesus is the gift of peace that can put you back together again, that can restore your soul and make you whole. That's the kind of peace we need in this broken and fallen world in which we live. But then there is another meaning of the word peace. In the Greek New Testament, the word for peace normally means simply the absence of war or conflict. But the peace that Jesus gives to us, to every believer, is his sustaining presence in the midst of life's conflicts. His sustaining presence in the midst of confusion, in the midst of sufferings and sorrows. Yes, we have this sustaining presence in the midst of troubles and trials in our lives. Jesus Christ is the Prince of Peace who surpasses all understanding. He is the peace that guards our hearts and our minds in the midst of our storm. Yes, he is our peace. He is our shalom. He makes us whole again. And this is why we need to share Christ as the gift to those who are broken and battered and bruised this Christmas season. He can heal you. He can mend your broken heart. He can put you back together again. Yes, Jesus is our peace. Jesus is our shalom. Jesus is our healer in this broken and battered world in which we live. And yes, he can bind us up even when we get divided. He breaks down barriers of racism. He breaks down barriers of sexism and classism. He breaks down the barriers that seeks to keep us broken and divided as a society and even as individuals. Yes, he is our shalom. He is our presence of peace. He is our healer. Jesus did not have a discriminatory faith like so many folk in the world today. He had the kind of faith that broke down barriers. This is the kind of faith we should have. He did not allow anything to hinder him from spreading his peace to others, whether it was a friend or a foe. He spread that peace. His faith caused him to visit Jairus' house in Galilee, but it didn't stop there. His faith caused him to visit the cemetery in the Gadarene and healed the man who was demon possessed. His faith took him to Matthew the tax collector in Capernaum. His faith carried him to Zacchaeus' house in Jericho. He did not have a discriminatory faith. His faith stopped the funeral procession in Nain. His faith found him holding a theological conversation with a woman at the well in Samaria. His faith caused him to put his hands on lepers. And his faith caused him to bless children who were sitting in his lap. Yes, his faith carried him to the grave in Bethany. Jesus did not have a discriminatory faith. His faith not only went to Bethany, but his faith carried him up an old rugged hill with an old rugged cross. Went on up that hill, dragging behind him your sins and mine. He carried it on behalf of someone who needed peace. He became broken and bruised on the cross so that he could bring peace and shalom and wholeness to us. His faith was not concerned about the world's pleasure. His faith reached out to the least, the last, the littlest, the lost, and the left out. Jesus became poor that we might be rich. He became hungry that we might be fed. Don't you hear him saying, when I was hungry, you fed me. Hunger is a condition of this earth, and Jesus is interested in those who eat and those who do not eat on earth in the here and now. Jesus is interested in the whole man. He's interested in your well-being. Yes, he is our peace in the midst of this world in which we live. He's our peace in the here and now. It's all right to have dreams of pie in the sky when you die by and by, but give me something sound on the ground by the pound while I'm still around. That's the kind of peace that he will give us, not those dreams of pie in the sky. Yes, we'll have peace over there also, but he wants to give you peace right now. Look at Jesus bringing peace and wholeness to the sick and the defeated. Jesus would not allow disease to defeat him. No, he cured the woman who had an issue of blood for 12 long years. Jesus did not allow disease to defeat him. There was a man who was blind from birth, and Jesus gave him his sight. There was a woman who had been bent over for 18 years, and Jesus straightened her up. There was a boy who had been knocked down by epileptic seizures, but Jesus picked him up. There was a man who could not walk, a man who could not talk. There was a man who could not hear, and Jesus fixed them all. Jesus would not allow disease to defeat him. No matter how broken you are today, Jesus can fix you. Jesus can pick you up. Jesus can put you back together again. Yes, he is our peace. He is our shalom. He is our healer. Then we ought to share the gift of Christ, this peace, this Christmas, because he is our peacemaker. Don't you hear him in that Sermon on the Mount on the Beatitudes? He says, blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. Well, guess what? He begins this whole process of being peacemaker. In other words, Jesus would not tolerate disorder in his presence. There had to be some peace in his presence. He is a peacemaker. Jesus brings calm out of confusion. Jesus brings cosmos out of chaos. Have you ever been there? Have you ever had any storms in your life and there was no peace to be found? No peace in the home, no peace on the job, no peace in your body. Yes, you felt the turbulence of marital conflicts in your marriage. You felt the contrary winds of unruly children in your home. Some of you felt the destructive waves of economic layoffs. Some of you experienced the lightning bolt of unemployment and housing foreclosures, and it seemed like all you could do, and the storm got worse. Aren't you glad for this Prince of Peace? You were about like the disciples on the boat in the middle of a storm-tossed sea. But like one of them, you had sense enough to call on Jesus, the master of the sea, who heard your despairing cry, and from the waters he lifted you. Now safe are you. And so here he is, this Prince of Peace. Jesus spoke peace to your troubled mind. Jesus spoke peace to your troubled home. He spoke peace to your unstable finances. He spoke peace to the pain in your body. Peace to the trouble in your marriage. Won't he bring peace in the midst of your storms? Do you have any disorders in life right now? Tell Jesus about it. You have any any high-level stress in your life right now? Tell Jesus about it. Do you have any confusion that you cannot handle right now? Tell Jesus about it. Do you have any chaos that you cannot quiet right now? Tell Jesus about it. Jesus, the Prince of Peace, will not allow anything to harm or defeat you. not allow disease or disorder. And guess what? He won't even allow death to defeat you.